Ronaldo! Welcome back, everybody. Now, we might have finished off all of Mario's side-scrolling titles on the NES and Super Nintendo, but before we can get to his transition into the third dimension, we still have a few more 2D entries to look at. With that said, it's time to take a look at Mario's first handheld adventure, Super Mario Land. But first, a little history. As some of you probably know already, unless you're just stupid, this brick is known as the Game Boy. Created by the late Gunpei Yokoi as a successor to the Game & Watch series of early handhelds, the Game Boy was released in North America on July 31st, 1989, quickly exploding in popularity. One thing that helped it succeed at the time of its release was its library of launch titles. Well, specifically, two of its launch titles. There was Tetris, packed with the system, along with the first Mario game not to be crafted from Shigeru Miyamoto's hands, Super Mario Land. And here's a little fun fact for you. Apparently, Nintendo considered packaging Super Mario Land with the Game Boy instead of Tetris. But Hanks Rogers, who later co-founded the Tetris company, insisted they package Tetris with it instead, because he felt that a Mario game included with the system would only sell the Game Boy to young boys as opposed to everyone else. I guess it makes sense, but does Super Mario Land have more to offer than just the name? And how well did Gunpei Yokoi and his team hold up without Miyamoto's supervision? Well, let's take a look and see. I can only guess it was because of Shigeru Miyamoto not being involved with the game that we're not exactly in the Mushroom Kingdom anymore. Mario finds himself in Sarasa Land, a more surreal version of the Mushroom Kingdom, ruled by the spunky little Princess Daisy. You heard right, Princess Daisy, making her debut in this game. This was before she became all sporty and tomboyish and whatnot. My only assumption is that Mario was getting tired of biting on peaches for the time being, or toadstools in this case, but then he thought that maybe picking daisies would be easier, and I guess he came to realize that it was anything but easier. Now, what made Daisy hook up with Luigi is something I won't even try to figure out, so let's move on. Anyway, Princess Daisy is captured by an alien named Tatanga, not to be confused with Topanga. And now it's up to Mario to travel across the 4 worlds that make up this confusing dominion and rescue her. It's basically the plot to the original Super Mario Bros., but with an alien. Aliens in a Mario game. However, I will give Topanga some credit for actually having a legit reason for kidnapping Daisy. According to the instruction manual, Topanga wants Daisy to marry him. So not only do we have aliens in a Mario game, but now we have forced marriages! Yeah, it's pretty ludicrous in hindsight, but like I said before, stories in video games aren't important. So how does the game play? Well, it's pretty much a Game Boy version of the original Super Mario Bros. The HUD looks similar, the gameplay is similar, the fact that you can't shift the screen to the left. But then again, we're not exactly in the Mushroom Kingdom anymore, so don't pick this game up thinking you're gonna get the exact same thing as Super Mario Bros. There are 4 worlds this time: the Birabuto Kingdom, the Muda Kingdom, or Muta Kingdom, whatever, the Easton Kingdom, and the Chai Kingdom. Each world also has 3 levels, so if we do the math, that means there are only 12 levels in the entire game. This should be understandable because the Game Boy didn't exactly carry as much power as the NES. But none of the levels are by any means short. Yeah, you can beat the game in about a half hour or 45 minutes if you're skilled enough, but for what you're paying your money's worth, they're just fine. I'm not sure what to say about the level design though. I like some of the hidden secrets, but it gets really tricky sometimes. Not that challenge is bad, I just feel that at its worst, it can be a little too over the top. Enemies, or at least slightly altered versions of enemies from the original Super Mario Bros. Return. And trust me, once you get to World 4, the enemy placement starts to become a little obnoxious. My most hated enemies are probably the spiders in World 3-2, and the birds in World 4-3. They're everywhere, and their attack patterns are ridiculous. Thankfully, like always, Mario can obtain power-ups to help him get past these formidable foes. Though the power-up selection isn't as bountiful as Super Mario 3, or as effective as Super Mario World. There's the mushroom that makes Mario grow bigger, the star that makes Mario invincible for a short time, and of course the fire flower, which lets Mario shoot fireballs from his hands. Or just plain black balls. Oh, I mean super balls. You're probably expecting a joke. Well, forget it. I gotta keep this show child-friendly. You dirty little... The flower in this game is alright, but it doesn't even come close to being as useful as the normal fire flower. You can only shoot one projectile at a time, and they bounce all over the place, so you have to wait until it disappears before you can shoot another one. And their aim is just unbearable. Sometimes they can go right over an enemy's head, or just completely miss them entirely. Well, I guess it's kinda cool that they can be used to collect coins from far away. I guess. The first 2 levels of each world are standard, while the 3rd level is where the boss battle takes place. Yeah, it's what you'd expect, but World 2-3 will have Mario piloting a submarine, and World 4-3 has him in an airplane. By the way, I'm gonna show this picture of Mario from the instruction manual just so that this joke can make sense. Yellow submarine, yellow submarine, yellow submarine. I actually enjoy these sections quite a bit. The vehicles are easy to control and you can shoot things, which is always fun, unless it was real life, which is the opposite of fun and I don't recommend it, but if you do, then you go get in a jail now. The only thing that kind of annoys me about these sections is that they start out as auto-scrolling levels up until you reach the boss. And I forgot to mention this before in my other reviews, but I'm not a fan of auto-scrolling levels. Just keep me in control, okay? However, while that does bother me a little, I can definitely say that Super Mario Land is a very impressive looking game. For an early Game Boy title, Super Mario Land manages to be visually interesting and generally investing. The locations are taken from real-world locales, and that's plain to see from the palm trees in World 1 to the bamboo in World 4. I can't say much considering this game was made for a system whose graphical capabilities didn't go far beyond green and black, but notwithstanding some minor graphical hiccups, aesthetically, this game holds up very well. The music is probably the best thing I can say about this game. No joke, I really love this game's soundtrack. The music was composed by Hirokazu Tanaka, who also designed and coded the audio hardware for the Game Boy and the Famicom. Apparently, he also helped create the look of the NES Zapper, the Game Boy camera, and the Game Boy printer. Quite a multi-talented guy we have here. Tanaka also helped in creating the soundtrack for other Nintendo games such as Metroid, Kid Icarus, and Earthbound. I'm not quite as aware of him as I am with Koji Kondo or Totakeke, I mean Kazumi Totaka, but from what I've heard of his work, Super Mario Land might just have his best stuff. I love almost every single piece of music in this game, minus the confusing addition of the can-can when Mario gets a star. Seriously, what was that about? My favorite is probably the theme to World 2. It's just really well made and it's super catchy to boot. The theme that plays in World 2-3 and World 4-3 is really cool too, even though it just sounds like a variation of the Super Mario Bros. Theme. Oh, look, the final boss. Alright, let's show this prehistoric extraterrestrial how we do things downtown. Phew, glad that's over. So, overall, what's my verdict on Super Mario Land? Well, you know what? I actually had a really good time playing this one. Super Mario Land is by no means a perfect game. I'll still play Super Mario World before picking this game up again, but for Mario's first true adventure game on a handheld, I think it's great. Since I first downloaded it through the Nintendo 3DS eShop in 2011, then again for my Wii's Game Boy Advance emulator, and then again on an original Game Boy, I've beaten it about 7 times. I don't know what it was, but there was something about Super Mario Land that just really got me hooked on it. It's not too long, it plays like a Mario game should, it's graphically impressive for an early Game Boy game, and it has a great soundtrack. I have run into some glitches during my multiple playthroughs, and there have even been some instances where I was close to putting the game down and going to play something else, but Super Mario Land still holds a very special place in my heart regardless. Super Mario Land was a big hit when it first came out, so much so that a sequel was made only 3 years later, once again for the Game Boy. How does it compare to the original? Is it any better? Or is it just not worth picking up again? Well, tune in next time for my review of Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins. Until then, this is Mark, aka Super Smash 3DS, bidding you all a smashing farewell.